Agatha Christie's Go Back for Murder, which deals with family values and filial devotion, has a lot to recommend it. It's a classic whodunit filled with red herrings, a subplot of romantic love. You can't ask for more than that, can you? It's the first play for the 2019 Thierry Society season, and Chanel Leroux is playing the main part, and she's going to tell us all about it. So welcome, Chanel.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for having me.
Now, the role that you play is the daughter of the woman who was accused and imprisoned for murder, and you were a young child when this all happened. Did you grow up believing that your mother was guilty?
I actually didn't know until I received the letter that she'd written to me when I turned 21. So I actually grew up believing that my father and my mother were killed in an accident. That was how my aunt and uncle raised me. So it wasn't until I actually turned 21 and came of age that I received this letter from my mother, from her grave, essentially telling me that she was innocent.
Does the play begin with that letter, or is it set the scene?
It does, yeah. So there isn't a scene where I'm actually reading the letter, but, shortly after I've read it, I've gone back to England to try and find out what's gone on. You
spring into action.
That's right.
Now, the plot moves from the 1930s, which was when your mother was convicted, and the 1950s, I guess, when you get your letter. So it's 20 years, really.
Yeah.
How skillfully does Agatha Christie take it from one part to the other?
She's really good at doing that. It's a very wordy play, as you can imagine.
Is that because of the times it was set, or because Agatha Christie was a writer who belonged to an earlier era, do you think?
I think it's both. I think it's both of those things. I think what's even more skillful is the way that we've had to adjust the set and also age physically and character-wise.
Oh, of course you would, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So everybody has to behave as if they've grown older in the way that they positioned and moved, and then obviously there's hair and makeup and costume changes, especially for me because I have to turn into my mother in a few seconds.
Wow. So you actually play her part, as it were?
Yeah, so I play Carla Crale, who's the young 21-year-old Canadian/English lady, and then her mother, Caroline, who's British. So I also do two different accents.
I was going to say that you would have to. Yeah. And you came originally from South Africa, so you must have a lot of accents under your belt.
I actually do. I grew up in a very theatrical family, so I was lucky enough to be exposed to my mom doing 1,000,001 accents just for fun around the house. And I think a South African accent is very neutral, so it's easy to actually do all sorts of different accents because it's quite flat as an accent. So I do have a couple of accents under my belt.
Where did you grow up? Johannesburg?
I grew up in a small town called Howick in KwaZulu-Natal, which is close to Durban. But I moved to Cape Town when I finished school, so I spent most of my adult life there.
And were you acting there?
I took a break from acting after school, and I actually only really got back into it when I moved to Adelaide. Adelaide's got some really great opportunities for actors, and I sort of refound my passion for acting when I moved here.
You said also you lived in England for a while.
Yes.
But you didn't do any acting there either?
I didn't really try hard enough, to be honest. I sort of had it in my head that London was just be way too hard to get into anything decent. If I had my time again, I probably would have tried a bit harder. And I've done a fair bit of travel. I lived in Buenos Aires in Argentina for a year as well, lived in England, and now I'm here. I've been here in Australia for the last 4 years.
And you also sing, and I think you dance, because you teach ballet, so I guess you dance.
I do, yeah. My mum was a dance teacher. She had her own dance studio, so I've been dancing since I was about 4 years old. I'm mostly a trained classical ballet dancer, but I also do some other types of dance. And yes, I teach ballet to little kids, which is an absolute joy.
So you've got the full...
A triple threat.
That's it, yes. So you can sing, dance, stand on your head and declaim.
Can't do that. I wish I could. I'm missing that in my repertoire.
Oh, that's easy. That's the least of your worries. Now, the role that you're playing was pointed out as the daughter of the woman who was killed, and you have to gather evidence, and we're not going to say whether she's innocent or guilty. We don't want to spoil the ending for anybody. No. But I think you could perhaps give us a little sample of the play. Can you read us something or speak something from it?
Yeah, sure. So the play is actually based on the book The Five Little Pigs. But when Agatha rewrote it for purposes of the play in the 1960s, she actually exchanged Poirot for Justin Fogg, who is the lawyer.
So she wanted a romantic lead, did she?
That's right. So basically he's just sort of told me that perhaps my mother just wrote this letter to comfort me, and that it's probably just a lie to ease my mind. And in response to that, I go into this speech. So, my mother never told lies. When she took a thorn out of my finger once, she said it would hurt. And going to the dentist, all those things. She was never one to sugar the pill. What she said was always true. And if she said she was innocent, then she was innocent. You don't believe me, but it's so.
Was he impressed?
He's quite defiant. He doesn't really want to help me, so that didn't really win him over just yet.
No. I'm talking now to Chanel Leroux, and she's playing the main part in this play, which is an Agatha Christie plot. So I suppose they get all the characters together. How do you actually sort of bring them all in to tell their story?
I go and meet a solicitor.
That's the love interest.
That's right.
Eventually.
Eventually, yes. And I work with him to get all these people together. That's pretty much it.
So they were all there at the time that your father died?
Yes. All of these people were there on the day that my father was murdered. And so I work with the solicitor to bring them all together, get them down to Alderbury, which is where the scene is set for 1930s. And then it's just everybody recalling their version of the story, and for myself and Justin to determine who's lying, who's telling the truth. And the play is really clever from that perspective, because it must have been incredibly difficult to write from so many different angles.
Mm. One of the complaints about theatre and film is there are not enough good roles for women. But this play, you've got, 6 good roles for women and 1 man.
There are quite a few women, and all very different, which is really nice. There's a lot of contrasting characteristics. So Miss Elsa Greer, who was my father's mistress, is not a very nice lady.
Oh.
She's very sort of arrogant and mean, and, obviously she's a bit of a home wrecker. She's played by a girl called Zanny, who's excellent. She's a terrific actress. Miss Williams, who plays the governess, she's lovely. She's played by Heather, and she's just a lovely, warm-hearted, but also quite strict governess type. Mm-hmm. Angela Warren, she's got a very interesting role, actually, because she plays a 14-year-old girl, and then later on she plays, a mature woman who's an archaeologist. So seeing her act and behave as a bratty 14-year-old and then growing up into a well-to-do lady who writes all of these books and likes rock paintings is an interesting development. And all of our characters do develop from, the 1930s to the 1950s. So, yeah, a lot of good parts for women, and they're all very different and contrasting.
Your father actually makes an appearance, does he?
He does, in the flashback.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yes.
He's not rising from the grave, I don't think.
No, you do see a bit of yes, and you've got to come and see this play just to see how cruel he is.
Oh, really?
Misogynistic and very much, woman should be doing this, and get me a beer, will you, and bloody women. And so
really?
It's a very dislikable character in that way. Played by a gentleman named Stephen, who's very good, very believable. It's one thing I can probably say about all the actors. I think there's good actors and then there's believable actors. Sometimes that's the same thing and sometimes it's different. And all of the actors in this play are incredibly believable, which makes, my job very easy, because there's a lot of eye contact on stage, which isn't always easy to have. And it really just helps you believe like you're in that moment and you're talking to that person. So that we're all very believable actors, I think.
Is this your first big role here?
It is, actually. Yes, it's my first lead. I've obviously performed in theatre and in plays for many, many years, but I mostly auditioned for supporting roles. This was my first audition for a lead role. I've been in, The Wizard of Oz, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat.
Wizard of Oz a few years ago, wasn't it?
Yes, not the big one. I wish I could say it was. This was when I was in school.
Ah.
And I played the Mayor of Munchkinland. I would have far rather played Dorothy, but that didn't happen. And I have been in some plays in Adelaide in the last couple of years. I was in Twist, where I played a South African girl.
Typecasting.
Yeah. I recently played a lady from London in My Friend Miss Flint. So I got to do the sort of Cockney accent, which was fun. But yes, this is probably the biggest role that I've had.
It's exciting.
It's exciting, yeah, and I've really enjoyed it. I do just love being on stage. I'm really comfortable there, I think, because I've just done it from such a young age. So people usually get nervous before they go on stage or as the curtain opens, and that's actually when I relax. I'm very comfortable there.
Norm Caddick is your director, and he's very experienced. Have you worked with him before?
I haven't. I've always heard about Norm, and when I found out that he was directing the play, I was really, really excited. I didn't know what to expect, but he's a lot more skillful and masterful than I ever could have anticipated. He's a real artist with the way that he directs all of the scenes. Some directors might just sort of sit in the auditorium and direct you from afar, but he barely sits down. He's always moving around and he's looking at the scene from different angles and making sure that if a photographer was to walk in and take a picture at any point in the play, it would look like a masterpiece just with that still shot. So he's a real artistic director. He's very firm and he's very clear on what he wants, which is always appreciative from an actor's perspective. Sometimes directors ask stuff of you that just doesn't make any sense. So he's very clear and he's very direct. And he's done an amazing job directing a very intricate and complicated play.
Well, of course, the timing would be absolutely essential in this, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And also we're quite limited with space on stage, particularly in the first act. So he's had to animate us physically as much as he possibly can in a small space, and that's not very easy. The set is incredible, how they've managed to get everything onto the stage for Act 1, which is sort of in homes and offices, and then Act 2, which is the big house where the murder took place. So it's really clever the way they've done it. There's a lot of very clever people.
I think they know what they're doing. I think they've been doing it for quite a while.
Yeah, I can't even build an IKEA shelf, let alone a whole set.
Oh, you don't have to do that. You're the star of the show. That's all you need to do. So Go Back for Murder, it's on at the Arts Theatre and it opens on the 7th of February and goes through to the 16th. But it's best if people check either Thierry Society or go to trybooking.com/453451. 453451. But actually, if you go to Try Booking and just put Go Back for Murder, it'll all come up. I think there are a couple of nights when it's not on, and then the 2 Saturday matinees as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And I imagine this will be a very popular play for people to go to because they love Agatha Christie. If you're planning to go to, book now and book early, book often, isn't that what they say?
Yes, absolutely. We'd love to have as many people there as possible, and they won't be disappointed.
Fantastic. So thank you very much, Chanel, for coming in.
Thank you, Emma.